The question hung in the air like smoke from a dying cigarette. Sarah's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass, her eyes fixed somewhere beyond my shoulder. We'd been married 8 years and she'd never asked me anything quite like this before. What would you do if I cheated? The words sliced through our quiet Tuesday evening like a blade through silk. I should have known then that hypothetical questions from wives are never really hypothetical at all. But before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, hit that subscribe button, because this story will change how you see marriage forever.
My name is David, and I thought I knew my wife. Sarah worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup downtown. Ambitious, driven, the kind of woman who could charm clients over lunch and still make it home to cook dinner. We had routines, predictable rhythms that felt comfortable rather than suffocating. That Tuesday started like any other. Sarah had been quieter than usual lately, claiming work stress was eating her alive. Her phone buzzed more frequently, messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in months. When I'd glance over, she'd angle the screen away with practiced casualness. "Just work stuff," she'd murmur, but her thumb moved with the urgency of someone guarding secrets. The question came during dessert. Apple pie she'd baked from scratch, something she only did when guilt was gnawing at her conscience. I realize that now. "Hypothetically," she pressed when I didn't answer immediately. "If you found out I was having an affair, what would your first reaction be?" My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "That's a strange question, Sarah." She laughed, but it sounded hollow, like an echo in an empty room. "I'm just curious about how people handle betrayal differently. Some explode, others shut down completely." I studied her face, searching for clues I was too naive to recognize. I guess I'd want to understand why first, before making any decisions. Her smile flickered. "You're too understanding, David. Sometimes I wonder if that's a weakness." The seeds of doubt she planted that evening took root faster than I expected. Sarah's behavior shifted in subtle ways that accumulated like dust on neglected furniture. She started going to the gym at odd hours. Her phone developed a sudden need for privacy, always face down, always face down, always password protected. 3 weeks later, she announced a work retreat. 2 days in Monterey, she explained while packing clothes I'd never seen before. Team-building exercises, strategic planning sessions, pretty boring stuff. I nodded, playing the trusting husband while my instincts screamed warnings I wasn't ready to hear. She kissed my cheek before leaving, and her lips felt different somehow, like they belonged to a stranger wearing my wife's face. That Friday night stretched endlessly. I tried reading, watching Netflix, anything to quiet the paranoia clawing at my chest. Around midnight, I made a decision that would shatter everything. Sarah had always been careless with passwords, using variations of our anniversary date for everything. Her email opened on the 3rd try, and what I found there rewrote our entire marriage in brutal clinical detail. Messages from someone named Marcus. Not work-related. Not innocent. "Can't wait to hold you again. David suspects nothing, right? You taste like freedom." My hands trembled as I scrolled through months of correspondence. They'd been planning this retreat together. Marcus wasn't a coworker, he was a photographer she'd met at a coffee shop 6 months ago. Their messages painted vivid pictures of hotel rooms and stolen afternoons while I worked late, completely oblivious. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was reading how she described me to him, like a golden retriever who's grateful for scraps of attention. Those words burned themselves into my memory with permanent ink. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I planned. Saturday morning, I drove to Monterey, found the boutique hotel she'd mentioned in her messages. The desk clerk, a young woman with kind eyes, initially refused to give me information about guests. "I'm her husband," I explained, showing my wedding ring. "She forgot her medication, and I'm worried about her." 20 minutes later, I stood outside room 237, listening to sounds that confirmed every terrible suspicion. Sarah's laughter mixed with unfamiliar masculine tones, creating a symphony of betrayal that nearly brought me to my knees. I knocked. The silence that followed was deafening. Footsteps whispered urgency, the sound of someone scrambling for clothes. When the door finally opened, Sarah's face went through a remarkable transformation, surprise melting into fear, then hardening into defiance. "David." Her voice barely qualified as a whisper. Behind her, a tall man with dark hair attempted invisibility in the bathroom doorway. Marcus, I presumed. He looked exactly like someone who would describe himself as passionate and misunderstood. "I brought your medication," I said calmly, holding up an empty prescription bottle. "Thought you might need it." Sarah's composure cracked like ice under pressure. "How did you find me?" "Your laptop. Your emails. Your lies." Each word dropped between us like stones into still water. Everything. The conversation that followed wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no thrown objects, no cinematic confrontations. Just three adults standing in a hotel room, acknowledging that one life was ending and others were beginning. Marcus, to his credit, had the decency to look ashamed. Sarah simply looked tired, as if maintaining the deception had been exhausting her for months. "I was going to tell you," she said finally. "When? After the divorce papers were filed?" She flinched. "It's not that simple, David. It's exactly that simple. You made a choice. Every day for 6 months, you made the same choice." I left them in that hotel room and drove home through coastal fog that seemed to mirror the haze settling over my future. The 3-hour drive gave me time to process emotions I hadn't expected, relief mixed with heartbreak, anger tempered by strange gratitude. Sarah returned Sunday evening to find her belongings packed in neat boxes by the front door. I'd spent the weekend methodically dismantling our shared life, creating clear boundaries where none had existed before. "We need to talk," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. We already did. In room 237. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly civil. Sarah moved in with Marcus within a month, confirming that their relationship was more than casual infidelity. They seemed genuinely happy together, which somehow made everything worse and better simultaneously. I kept the house, the dog, and most of our mutual friends, though friendships forged during marriage rarely survive its dissolution intact. Sarah got the new life she'd been secretly building, complete with someone who saw her as exciting rather than predictable. 6 months later, I realized Sarah had done me an accidental favor by asking that question. Her hypothetical had prepared me for a reality I wasn't consciously expecting but somehow knew was coming. Sometimes betrayal isn't a sudden explosion. Sometimes it's a slow leak that eventually sinks the ship while you're still bailing water, convinced everything can be saved. I never answered her original question that Tuesday evening. But if she asked me now, I'd tell her the truth. I'd want to understand why. Then I'd want to understand myself well enough to never accept scraps of love again. Some golden retrievers, it turns out, are perfectly capable of learning new tricks. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe for more real stories about the messy complexity of human relationships. Trust your instincts, they're usually trying to tell you something important.